6.0 reconvene open session, procedural business, 5:30 p.m. 6.1 call to order. The Board of Trustees are hereby reconvening open session at 5:37 p.m. 6.2 roll call. Trustees to identify themselves by first and last name to formally establish form. Dr. Natalie McCommon, Trustee Area 4.
Bill Mellinger, Trustee Area 1.
Dana Ridley, Trustee Area 2. Cindy Gardner, Trustee Area 3.
And Jordan Zarate is out ill, so with 4 here, we do have quorum established. 6.3 Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Derek.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And not on the agenda, we would like to take a moment of silence to recognize those we lost in the Texas school shooting. Thank you. 7.0 closed session report. 7.1 announcement of reportable actions taken during closed session. Approval of this stipulated expulsion contract for case number 37-21/22 effective 5/4/2022 through 12/16/2022 was a vote of 4-0 that was approved. The agenda was amended earlier in our meeting, and we are moving 12.1 up to now. Do you have any green sheets for 12.1? No green sheets. 12.1 Superintendent. Approval of hiring the new superintendent and approving the contract. Public employee appointment. Employment Government Code Section 54957, position title superintendent, fiscal impact to be determined. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Bill is the first and second is Dana. As point of discussion, I need to read the following. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54953, subdivision C3, the board provides this oral summary of the salary and fringe benefits as set forth in the proposed board and superintendent. Employment agreement between Rim of the World Unified School District and Dr. Kimberly Frickler. Contract term effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2026. Annual salary of $223,420 effective July 1st, 2022. Annual increases will reflect the same terms as other management employees. Paid medical benefits on the same terms as other management employees. Paid health and welfare benefits in retirement with 10 consecutive years of service within the district. During the term of agreement or any renewal or extension of the agreement, Dr. Kimberly Fricker will be provided a whole life insurance policy as other senior management employees. 24 days of annual vacation with pay exclusive of holidays, 12 days of annual sick leave. The district shall provide a $50 monthly stipend for maintenance of the cellular telephone. The district shall provide a $500 monthly stipend for mileage. The district shall pay for the necessary expenses associated with professional growth activities approved by the board. The district shall pay the superintendent's membership dues in the Association of California School Administrators, ACSA, the School Superintendents Association, AASA, and all expenses for the superintendent's active participation in a local Rotary Club. Any other discussions? Seeing none, calling for the vote, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. We are going to do an introduction of Dr. Fricker and take a brief pause after that to welcome her. Yay! Yay!
I'm pleased to read this press release for Dr. Kimberly Fricker. The Real World Unified School Board of Education announces the hiring of Dr. Kimberly Fricker as the new district superintendent for regular May 26, 2022 board meeting by unanimous vote. This was accumulation of extensive search that began in March of 2022. There was a high interest in this position and 11 candidates vying for the position. Dr. Fricker has an extensive and very successful career that includes serving the past 8 years as superintendent of schools at Temple City Unified and the assistant superintendent of educational service for Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified. Previously, she held the director of secondary education, high school principal, assistant principal, and science teacher roles. Dr. Fricker earned her PhD from the University of Southern California.
Right on.
And her master's and bachelor's degrees from the state of Michigan. She's been an active member of her current community and expertise in strategic planning and implementation as a systems leader. Dr. Fricker looks forward to becoming an active member of her community while getting to know the students, staff, and community. Room of the World School Board President, Dr. Natalie Lindman, said Dr. Fricker's proven success of raising student achievement for all students has been a hallmark of her career. Her vision and passion for the success of every child make her coming to Room of the World Unified the beginning of a bright new era for our students, teachers, and parents.
Oh, baby. That was good.
Thank you. This time.
They're gonna sign the contract right now, and then we'll take a recess and have some cookies and punch and Dr. Fricker to meet up.
Not coffee.
No.
No coffee.
I know that.
Everybody is
We're all.
I know, I heard you.
I was, they were gonna.
Get a picture of the two of you together.
Yes.
That was a fever.
Yes. I'm not.
8.0 public testimony. 8.1, are there any green sheets? 8.2, no public comments. 8.3, RTA and CSEA representatives. None are here. 9.0, governing board members reports and announcements. 9.1, governing board members. I'd like to ask Phil to go first.
I'm still deeply moved by what has happened in Texas. And appreciative of the fact that we have actually already started some evaluation of our safety plans here with the deputy sheriffs. And thankful for that. And we need to continue that process, but and I'm thankful that there are people there that are trying to care for the children, which is going to be a long process of recovery for everyone there involved in Texas. And so thank you for taking the time, Madam President, to have us decide we started. I've had the privilege of attending the art show this week and am entirely impressed with the kind of students and kind of artwork that we have. Just amazing. If you missed the art show, you missed a really special event with really some incredible artwork. The pottery, the drawings, just amazing. Also had the privilege of attending the choral concert, which was fun. And we need to do something about the sound system for our school here at the high school because it broke at 3 o'clock right before the choral concert started. So I also had the privilege of being a part of the Early Act end of year celebration where we had over 95 students that are part of Early Act, all in leadership development. I am extremely proud of our Early Act students at Valley of Enchantment Elementary School, where children in 3rd grade are leading their class, 4th grade and 5th grade. Leaders from every one of those grade levels there's president, vice president, treasurer, corresponding secretary, and recording secretary. They are raising funds and have raised, again, several $1,000s, as well as doing community projects. And so I'm just really proud of our Early Act students at Valley and Enchantment Elementary School. And it's amazing the number of students that will be graduating. So looking forward to being part of graduation night. And I think our students are on their way to grad night right now, aren't they?
Correct.
So we have a good district, and I am impressed with the candidates that looked at us as a possibility and actually wanted to come here to be superintendent. I was impressed by the interviews that we had. But we had really exceptional people. I remember going into the process saying, how are we going to pick someone out of all these? Because they're all really exceptional. And we clearly have selected the best of the best. So again, congratulations.
Cindy?
Okay, so start with the band. Went to the district-wide band concert on Friday night, and I have to say it's so adorable to listen to elementary do their squeaky presentations because they're learning and they're just so cute and they're so excited to be there. Really fun. It was fun. One student got her clarinet caught in her hair, and the music teacher had to take a moment to get the clarinet detangled, and it makes you so, you just want to squish them. They're so cute. Our jazz band, I have to give a huge shout out to our jazz band because those musicians are absolutely amazing. Like if you close your eyes, which I did, you can actually think I'm in New Orleans, Independence Hall. Oh my gosh, they're so brilliant. And the girls, the 2 girls, they have the hugest instrument, like some saxophone thingy that was as big as they were. It was just amazing that these slim little girls had such huge instruments and were just rocking it. So that was kind of awesome to see. I did go to a high school open house and LA open house. Unfortunately, I got to fire performance as everybody was walking out because at LAE I talked way too much. I know it's shocking. It's pretty shocking. I didn't make it down my hallway all the way because every classroom I had to have a chitty chat apparently. And so, anyways, and then scholarship, the senior award scholarship night on Tuesday night. That is one of my favorite nights. The energy in the room, the kids' smiles, the parents are excited. I mean, yes, I am on the Community Scholarship Council. We did give 36 scholarships, 100% of the applicants we awarded a scholarship to. So we had just over $35,000 given. And it just is such a great feeling to acknowledge our students' hard work these 4 years. We're so proud of them going on to their next chapter of their lives, whether it's a trade school, a community college, or yes, UCLA. Yes, I know it's
Where?
Heather.
Where?
UCLA. But you know what though? Olivia Reed, who was accepted to nursing school, only about 2% are accepted to UCLA nursing school. Somebody said that they believe it's our first one to get into the nursing school. So I had to give away snacks on that. I mean, that's just amazing. And she's so excited about it. So really great things to come. I mean, obviously senior barbecue, we have the drama showcase, alumni, as well as current students. Next Wednesday, we have graduation, we have senior assembly. That one makes me cry too, actually. They have the music like home and then all of a sudden you're just crying. So that's exciting. And then of course the graduations, both Mountain High School. I'm really excited Mountain High School is being back in the PAC. Love the energy and the intimacy of that graduation in that venue. So I'm really excited we're going back to normal on that one. Ordered the cakes today. And then what I did want to say is I'll talk about it more. I went to delegate assembly the Sunday after this past Sunday. I was super, I was a little bit fried because I took the 5:15 in the morning flight, but I really am glad that I pressed and went up there because we did a lot of really great work on Sunday, believe it or not. And I just want to rehash some, I know LCAP discussion at the last board meeting was held late. And I was getting a little loopy at 10 o'clock. I don't know about anybody else. My coffee was wearing off. So I just want to reiterate some of the things because going up to Sacramento, you're listening to other boards and you're listening to what they're doing. And you're like, okay, super on the right track. So, you know, of course, Joanna and I talked about math. Data says, oh, this is an area of support. A3G completion rate, which is always my passion because it also has DF rate, course selection, and that whole component, which also ties to a really, really great college and career readiness program. So into that, and then of course, to making sure everybody talks about early childhood literacy, the K3, and I'm worried about the fact that our little ones missed 2 years of really great instruction. And worried about the repercussions of that in years to come. And I'm hopeful that as we had a great governor's budget, but as we go forward, that it's recognized by the state in Sacramento that our kids are going to be needing support services, whether that is a healthy budget or mental health services, whatever that is, that it's more than just 2 years. But this is a 10-year long-term goal to make sure that we capture all of those gaps in learning and we address them effectively and we address them efficiently. And so hopefully no one goes, oh wow, it's 2025, we're done. Yay, yes, we're over COVID. No, that's one conversation that was going on a lot on Sunday, is the fact that we need to have long-term support by the state in the education budget. So just excited about that, and I'll give you the rest of my little legislative report, because I've got a lot.
Thank you, Cindy. I'll go next. Again, I want to welcome Dr. Fricker. The superintendent evaluations interview process actually it's so interesting to be part of. And as Bill mentioned, we had a lot of wonderful candidates. I was very impressed. We did all, have a clear choice, and that was fun too. And that you selected us to come to, I'm really grateful. Part of the superintendent evaluation, I keep saying evaluation, sorry, interviews. One candidate asked, what makes Rim special? Why do you like this district? What's special about this community? And my response was, I went through school here in this community, wanted to have my children go to school here. And what I have always appreciated is that my littles feel safe. And then the school shooting happens, and it kind of spins everything in your head going, hey, I've loved that my kids have felt physically and emotionally safe. They're connected to their teachers, they're connected to the staff, they're connected to their friends, and they go in every day, my kid wants to play video games instead of going to school, but relatively excited about going to school. I'm not dragging them in, right? And that's because of the connections and the relationships. But at the same time, I know those kids in that classroom in Texas also felt safe, and it just puts that, in the forefront of our minds that we always have to be thinking about it, training on it, and doing what we can to keep our campuses secure, paying attention to who and what's going on in our community, right? There were red flags with this person and nobody did anything. And because we are such a small, tight-knit community, I just want to throw it out there that we all have a responsibility to speak up when we see things that are out of place or concerning to us, and we do something about it, because I want our students to always feel safe. I want my kids to feel safe, and we're still all processing it. So I think much more will be learned, and we can improve these environments for our kids always. Switching gears a bit, I was able to attend scholarship night also, which is just a wonderful night, and give out the scholarship to our Zachary Lawrence, who isn't with us because he's a grad night tonight, but he's done just a wonderful job being part of the board and being part of the team. Ever since I've been watching board meetings or been attending them or been on the board, he is the most active, engaged student that we've had, truly cares about sharing the student's voice with us and being their representative. So I appreciate everything that Zach's done. I'm excited for his future. He's going to CI, and I think he'll do wonderful things in the world. I attended open house at LE with my little ones, and I didn't talk so much, but I did lots of hellos and lots of check-ins. At that time, it's for the parents, and the parents are busy with their teachers, and I don't want to interrupt that a great deal, but I showed my face and said hello, thank yous. And it's hard because one mine's a fifth grader, so it's his last open house, and he's just so bitty and little, and it's hard for me. But I also we had an off-season basketball tournament in Big Bear, and the kids played very, very well. I was very proud of them too. So fun stuff going on. Obviously, graduation. I have diplomas to sign, which is another one of my favorite activities every year for our mountain students. Always proud of them. And I think the last week and a half, 2 weeks left of school. I hope it's fun and safe for everyone. And we go into the summer and just get to recharge. So thank you. Anna.
Sally. So I also had a very active school district-wise couple of weeks. I was able to attend all of the open houses, which I'm very excited about. I've never been able to actually squeeze it in. Wonderful to see what's happening on campuses, also invigorating in terms of seeing just beautiful student work, having not been able to experience this in the past couple of years. Just very grateful for what the staff is doing and what the students are showing what they're capable of. And so I just want to express my appreciation to staff for creating these opportunities for students. I went to the choir performance last night and really was struck by how fantastic the crowd was, how fantastic the performers were, and just the synergy that was happening within the performance. Especially just enjoyable was both 3 SDC students are on the high school choir. The name of the third escapes me, but it was Hall Soderholm and Noah, who just, you can't help but smile when you see Noah. He's just such a love. And so, and just to see the interaction with students and on stage and then between the performers and the audience was phenomenal. Again, the art show was just breathtaking, photography, gorgeous. The work that State Myers and Fiscal are able to get out of their students, and also the almost therapeutic aspect that art is providing to our students, and you can just see where they're at just by looking at their artwork. Phenomenal, and just so much in a small room. It kind of felt like I needed to face myself there. Saw Zachary there. You mentioned that both Natalie, you and you were in tears with their talk. He was really touched by your words, and is just very grateful for the experiences that he's been able to have throughout his years in the district. Well, let me see. Went to Avid Senior Recognition, and that was just also so wonderful to see what our students have accomplished. So many of them. And all of them being, they've gotten into amazing universities, and all of them are coming our first generation in terms of going to college. And so our AVID program is really making a world of difference for these students. And they were saying that time and time again. Let me see here. On Wednesday, Cindy mentioned that there's going to be a drama showcase with seniors and alumni. That's from 5 to 6 here at the PAC. In addition, right after that, at 6 o'clock, we'll be doing time with trustees. Cindy and I will be here in the library for anybody who wants to come in and chat. And so the other thing I wanted to mention, kind of changing gears, is I saw this article in one of our news roundups before the Texas shooting. And it speaks to mental health, and I thought it was worth reading, considering what has happened. And so I'm just going to read from our update. It says, almost a third of students who considered visiting a school counselor or school-based therapist or school psychologist about issues outside of career services said they ended up not doing so because they didn't think that their issues were big enough to bother someone. Or felt like they would be judged, according to a nationally representative survey from Springtide Research Institute. In the same survey of 4,038 teens and young adults, 45% said they hesitate to see a therapist because their parents don't take their concerns seriously. 53% said they wouldn't want their parents to know they were meeting with a school counselor or therapist. And 51% said they fear school staff might treat them differently or give them fewer opportunities at school. Stigma surrounding mental health services in schools persists despite an acute need for them. The pandemic's impact on student mental health and school connectedness has been especially pronounced for traditionally marginalized students, including Black, immigrant, and non-binary students. Of LGBTQ students, 76% reported feeling greater levels of poor mental health, emotional abuse by parent or guardian, and suicide attempts, according to data released in April by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's compared to 37% of heterosexual students feeling that way. Just thought that was worth mentioning.
Thank you, Dan. 9.2, Superintendent, Mrs. Murphy.
I had a lot of positive reaction from the press release I sent out yesterday, just an email I sent to staff regarding Texas and support. And staff has followed my advice and reached out to me today via email with suggestions and articles. And so that's been a positive reaction to that. And even a parent reached out, thanked me for the press release this morning. And so I just think that's had a positive reaction. I really do appreciate our Twin Peaks Sheriff Department. The scheduled site assessments for each site was already scheduled with them prior to the shooting that happened this week. So as part of a grant that Jamie's working on to get us some money to help improve school safety here in Rim. So it's perfect timing and look for those suggestions, and I've been in contact with Dawn, lieutenant there. So I too attended a lot of the events that you all attended, and open houses and scholarship nights, always amazing. I was at a 3-hour scenic board meeting last week that I did while I was in Houston. So it was nice to spend time with that board. I've been on that board for 3 years now, appointed by Tony Thurman. So they had a nice farewell for me. And so it was a nice experience it's a very technical board, but it's good to have those relationships. I am happy to announce that for the last 2 years, I have arranged the senior picture taking at Snow Valley Ski Lift. They got the parts in from Finland. So they are going to have the seniors do that again, I believe through Crystal and Tori, but it's June 3rd. I tried to look it up real quick, but I think it's June 3rd. They're going to do that for the seniors and to go up and take a picture. I hope that that's a tradition and a legacy that I leave here in Rim. I'll have to have Kimberly get in contact with Kevin, and I'll give her that information so that we can do that. It's been a tradition that the seniors have really enjoyed. We don't have a lot of folks here tonight. I know Reed's here tonight, but from the high school or secondary, because everybody's at grad night. And Griggs attended the prom and helped there and said it was lovely and a great experience. So thank you for attending that for us last Saturday while I was in superintendent interviews. So, oh my goodness. I walked to high school today and said goodbye to every teacher, and took me 2 hours, and I got to every room. And I just wanted to thank Jim for your class and for singing to me today. It made my day, and you have a special place in my heart. So thank you, Mr. Watson. And I'm Zach tonight, so you can announce the next.
9.3 student representative report. Instead of Zachary Lawrence, we're going to have Mrs. Murphy.
And Zach did me the favor of making this extremely long tonight. I don't know that I'll do it with his enthusiasm. I did read it real briefly, but it's very long. So I'll just do it from here so I have the microphone. That's okay because my eyesight is terrible. There we go. CASP has been finalized as to elementary news as they're having celebrations. Elementary SIPSs are being finalized. LAE 5th graders held their annual invention convention. LAE 2nd graders are raising chicks, which Veronica and I walked through class with yesterday and saw. So chicks everywhere. So LAE is wrapping up their Mountain Humane Society service project and received a large donation from the Lions Club. LAE's open house learning celebration last night was a huge success. 5th grade end of the year celebrations at LAE Carnival Day will be June 6th. LAE Leader in Me first annual MRA survey administered for staff was administered for staff, families, and students. End of the year performances and field days. Field trips are underway, and I know that's why Mr. Hamilton's not here because some bus issues with the field trip at VOE. VOE State float parade was a hit. VOE Early Act students helped out at the lake. We celebrated our volunteers at VOE. CHE had a wonderful open house and volunteers updated their garden environment. CHE Spelling Bee finished with 2 exciting winners in primary and upper grades. CHE 5th grade students are ready for their day at Palais, and CHE Field Day is approaching and sponsored by PTA. MPH, more positive happenings. MPH goals, LCAP goal number 1, instruction, student learning, professional development. MPH staff engaged in their final universal design for learning, UDL professional development day today. Topics included access to the curriculum, removing barriers, targeted choice, and instructional practices, valuable and intentional feedback. EL update, 15 MPH students have met their reclassification criteria and will be celebrated June 1st during the reclassification ceremony at MPH Library. Thank you to our ELD teachers, Mr. Beresford, Mrs. Jackson, and Mrs. Miller for their hard work and the LPAC and LPAC administration. Thank you to our EL TOSA, Mrs. Roque. I said that correctly. Yes, and for serving at the EL, serving as the EL coordinator, MPH, organizing and implementing reclassification criteria, implementing data chats, and serving as an exceptional encouragement and resource for our students and staff. LCAP Goal 2, Student Safety and PBIS, MPH, ASB, PTA, and PBIS had a successful dance on May 20th, 2022 for students with positive behavior and attendance after spring break through May 18th, 2022. Students enjoyed music, dance competitions, photo booths, popcorn, cotton candy, and tacos. And the MPH principal's field trip was held at Sky Park on 5/20/22, honoring the students who met the everyday counts criteria. That's our attendance incentives, exceptional attendance, behavior, and grades for all 4 quarters of the 21-22 school year. 8th grade students had a GPA of 4.0 for all 4 years at 3 years at MPH. There we go. More positive happenings. LCAP goal number 3, engagement and equity. RHS band camp concert. RHS and MPH band concert was held on May 20th, 22. Went well, great job to our students and music teachers, Mrs. Stebbing and Mrs. Scheiser. School site council, the last school site council meeting of the year was held on May 25th, 2022. The team wrapped up the school year and planned for revisions to the SIPSA for the 22-23 school year. The third student school culture committee meeting was on 5/24/22. MPH continued its equity school culture meetings initiated by our equity consultant, Dr. White, in January of 2022. Students expressed their appreciation for their insight being valued and used to improve MPH. Upcoming events. Reclassification ceremony will take place on June 1st at the MPH cafeteria. 8th grade night at Sky Park, June 3rd. RHS Senior Walk, June 3rd. That is one of my favorite activities, by the way. Our students go back and walk through our elementary schools, our graduating seniors, and this year they've included going back to MPH. So that will be awesome. PE awards in first period, and 8th grade pizza party will be on June 8th. Rim of the World High School update. Prom was a huge success. Students had fun dancing the night away under the stars and lights at the East Valley Water District in Highland. Students played poker, enjoyed tacos and desserts, and showed up on their best behavior. Every 15 minutes before prom, juniors and seniors joined in an impactful presentation given by RHS ROP and CHP about driving under the influence. The video shown was produced in 2017, depicted a crash on their way to prom that resulted in a fatality of their beloved staff member, Crystal Cobb, along with multiple students. It was an emotional presentation that taught the valuable lesson to make positive choices before getting behind the wheel. They are pleased to announce their valedictorian, Jameson Crate. Jameson Crate will be attending UC Berkeley, majoring in computer science. His favorite class was AP Calculus, and his most difficult class was AP Physics. He has played varsity tennis and has been an active member of the science club, chess club, Boys State, and much more. Our salutatorian is our own Zachary Lawrence, our board member. Zach will be attending UCI to study bio pre-med. He will miss his time representing the school board, sitting on the school district's social justice committee, and playing volleyball.
Yay.
Rim of the World High School update, Evelyn and Evangeline DeLeon was recently announced by Future Engineers as one of 45 winners in the Power to Explore Students Challenge. In this national competition, contestants were challenged to explore how NASA has empowered some of its most famous missions across the solar system while sharing their own unique superpowers. And I know when I was in the classroom today, that essay was posted, and the teacher was announcing that. This is later to all the kids, and they're very excited about that NASA competition. Senior scholarships, we celebrated 65 of our seniors this past Tuesday, recognized all of their accomplishments, and were rewarded well-deserved scholarships. Thank you to all of our generous community members and organizations for supporting Rim of the High School's students year after year. Thank you for all that you do and those involved putting on a widely successful night year after year. There were 142 scholarships given, 65 students, and $123,000 was awarded to those students. Weekly communication, our weekly newsletter has a new look. Make sure you follow us, RHS, on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date with what's happening at RHS. This is very long. This is the longest one he's ever written. I think when I give him my gift at the next board meeting, I'll have to have a talk. Rim Pride celebration. Yesterday, any student that received a Rim Pride card this year was invited to a taco truck luncheon celebration. Students received Rim Pride cards for demonstrating positive, ready, involved, determined, and excellent behavior. RHS slows. Students had 50 PBIS points or more were also welcome to cash in their points for a taco plate. The board concert last Friday was a big success. We received a lot of support and almost filled the entire house. Our wind ensemble, band concert, and jazz band all performed, which finally allowed all band students their first opportunity to perform in 3 years. A big shout out to Cindy Gardner for his attendance as well. Spring Art Show, ceramic photo and studio arts students put their taken on display, it must be art, on display this week in our very own art gallery. The photo portrait wall in the 100 wing was dedicated to former and follow photo Scott Seth McHenry. Seth's parents, Tom and Troy, were in attendance to accept the dedication. Choir concert. Choir students were joined by MPH music students last night at PAC and gave a phenomenal performance. The PAC was nearly full and the crowd enthusiastically cheered both the RHS and MPH students alike. Thank you, Mrs. Stebbing, for always hosting, being well organized, publicized, and smooth music events. I'd say my computer wants to update right now, of course. Senior walk is planned for June 3rd. Seniors will be visiting the elementary schools of their choice and then headed to MPH to walk their halls one last time. Grad night. We are on our way to grad night now, to Disneyland now. Although the student board member Zach and Principal Burke wish they were at the board meeting, grad night is an event that couldn't be missed. This is RHS's first grad night since 2019. The class of 2022 has been looking forward to this night all year long. 2 more slides. I told you.
You know, you give him a scholarship and then he does this.
This is for Mountain High School for men. We have 24 seniors graduate this year and 1 more who is on the hunt to finish by June 3rd in time for graduation and on June 7th at 2 p.m. PAC.
I am so excited. It said like upward of 80% raising that graduation rate. I am like so excited.
I just signed all their diplomas, but you guys have to sign next. 10 of our seniors went to prom last weekend and had a great time. They're excited about senior day at Sky Park on June 3rd. We will be offering a reconstructed day next year where the students will be dismissed at 12:40 if they desire, so they may work or take CTE courses in the afternoon. We are working with 3 furniture vendors who will be helping us to look at student furniture configuration for our classrooms and hope to create a new and more conducive learning environment for our students. We are still working with a consultant to make changes to improve our program, including offering valuable credits which the teachers will be working on this summer in addition to our summer book club. RVA update. We have been proctoring the CAS test for our students for the last 4 weeks, and we are still testing a few more today. Our TK6 teachers had a great field trip for their students to Big Bear Zoo last week. We will be hiring 2 more full-time teachers for TK12, and we are surveying parents to see how many students we will have next year. So far, 40 families have signed up for RBA. Our teachers will be hosting a Chromebook and textbook return day on June 3rd. And the teachers will be here to have a nacho party with their students to say farewell to each other for the summer. That was 15 slides. There you go.
And
Thank you, Zach.
that, and every 15 minutes, I love that program. It's so emotional. And every time I see the video, it also, I realize that my husband did a really awesome job killing off those kids in Crystal, and it bothers me so much when I see that. But he does a really good job, and it's realistic. It's just so impactful.
When my daughter was in high school, she asked to be the victim at Apple Valley High School. And then she said, "When Mom, you've got to come read a letter." And you know me, so there was no way that I was gonna get through that event. So I said, "We need to volunteer for another position." Mom can't do that.
What struck me with this one in particular is the year my daughter graduated, so I know a lot of, actually all the kids who participated, is they also, the drunk driver spent the night in jail over at, at Twin Peaks, and he spoke afterwards, and he had written a letter, and that was just so intense and just powerful. So all across the board, that was sort of it would be nice if we could do it again, up here, but that was, I just know, an incredibly powerful experience for students.
Thank you. 10.0 reports and presentations. 10.1 budget and average daily attendance update report. Jen Calvert, Chief Business Official.
Hello, thank you very much. Good evening. So I'm going to do a pretty quick budget and enrollment report tonight because we are in the midst of building our 2022-23 proposed budget. And we'll bring that to the next board meeting when we do our public hearing. But in your board folder, and I have some extras in case you wanted a hard copy, you do have our current enrollment and attendance and our strike for 95. So one of the things that we are still working on is, what do we do about our declining enrollment? We are at 2,796 students. We are about a 3% decline from the prior year, just a little under that. We're realizing about a 5% decline since the start of school. So we did have a higher than trend on our students who left mid-year. So we revise our enrollment and our projected enrollment moving forward as we look at our funding for 2022, 23, 23, 24, and really we look at funding 5 years out. So we're still experiencing a 90% attendance yield or attendance rate. We're at currently 2,540 actually with our attendance. And this month line that you have in your board folders, that is our P2, that is our funding date attendance number. So one of the things that in the governor's may revise is not only using the 3-year average that remained from the January proposal into the May revise, there's also language to do a 1-year kind of hold harmless to your attendance rate. So that's one of the things that moving forward, we would have some choices to make as we do build the 2022-23 budget on kind of the assumptions we make and what we think might end up in the state enacted budget and what happens if certain things don't. So you're looking forward on, we talked at second in round, we were able to use the 3-year average, but if we have the 88% hold harmless, that would even make our financial outlook a little more positive. Since we are, do you have a question?
Yeah, of course they do. So question on the 5%, because you year after year talk about 3.5%. So are we going to really look at that 5%, or do we just wait and hold our steady?
I think that we should wait, if you know my opinion,
Yeah.
until there's a trend established. I mean, really 2020, 21, 21, 22, with some of the enrollment fluctuations, it really appears to be maybe blips in some COVID related. And we had a very low projected kinder and first grade this year, still higher than projected. We've had movement on the mountain. We're having movement out of state. I mean, there's really some things that are impacting us that may not be a trend moving forward. It may be certain events, maybe a 2 or 3 year trend, or a 5 to 10 year trend. You know, I don't know. I don't think I would change my projection and my methods for that quite yet, to be honest, because we need to see what was a blip, scientifically, and what has not.
Yeah, sitting at the table with District 16, which encompasses, the high desert and wetlands and stuff. I loved hearing, oh, we're building 16,000 new houses on property development in this area in Victor Valley. Oh, we're doing. I was like, I think I'll just stop listening because they're experiencing growth because housing is cheaper than in LA and people are pushing and their Cern Valley has increased.
I think a couple of years ago, Cindy, when we before COVID, when we talked about things like that, we talked about the movement east from LA and hitting the Inland Empire. What does that do to the Inland Empire? And what does that do to you? We were a destination for that movement east because we had affordable housing up here. We had affordable rents up here. And since COVID and since the craziness with the housing market, we're no longer, we may not be the recipient of that movement east, except for the highest wage earners.
The Victor Valley was saying that, or to the board member there, that they're going way out. There's houses being built way out there. Also imagine though, the houses that are being built in this area, they're not really considered short-term rentals. We're up here. Part of our issue with real estate is we don't have the affordable housing for people who want to be residents, and instead the Airbnbs, the short-term rentals are snapping them up. So we don't have the enrollment that goes along with the real estate purchases.
And there's areas in San Bernardino County where short-term rentals aren't allowed. And unfortunately, our areas, they're not.
The market in the town where I live in the high desert, there are examples, there are 11 rentals in all of Apple Valley right now, and that includes home and apartments combined.
In my neighborhood, there's now we have a small neighborhood. What way? Our third short-term rental. Well, I heard 110 houses.
I think we all have our stories.
Yeah.
So,
I think we're all looking forward to this weekend and seeing what happens in our neighborhoods and how much music styles we hear.
Since I'm on microphone. I'm actually personally very lucky. Our short-term rental, that was a nightmare for 3 years on our neighborhood, and I live on a teeny little road, you guys know, and absolute nightmare. And it full, I have my first full-time neighbor. They have a little one, so and they actually came back now. So it was really a good story that we had someone that came back to raise her kids here. So I was like, hey, yay, enrollment. She's only 2.5, but she's cute. So we're gonna keep her up here. So I was excited about that. So, and with our enrollment, even though we're really nowhere near our strive for 95 and 95% enrollment. But we did hit our funding date just over 90%. So we're at a 90% enrollment, 88 enrollment. But for our Strive for 95 campaign, which will start up again next year, RVA, has been the leader, which they're at 96.38. But with our brick and mortar schools, Hoffman again is at 91.30.
We should start treating like medals or something.
We have that little asterisk by Hoffman. Is there always the winner?
And I've been working with the 13 High Desert Mountain Superintendents, and we've been working with Victorville Motors again. They are bringing back their incentive program for high school students. They have changed the rules to be almost perfect attendance to get a ticket to win a car at their event, and instead of perfect attendance as a transition after COVID. And so the principals, the superintendents have, including myself or RIM, have all signed off on rule approval, and I have sent the rules for the 2022-23 school year to Tori so that they have those and can start announcing those to students right away.
And then not to, I'll save a lot of the budget forecasts, a lot of the May revision information to next board meeting, but there are things that are positive in the May revision. Of course, everyone has heard the big news was the COLA increase and the addition to the base. I'm sure Cindy's going to talk a little bit about that at your legislative update. And then there's some one-time funds being proposed, discretionary, but with some language for intended use. And there's some COLA like categoricals. But we're still going to keep the message that there are also some things that aren't in the governor's budget, which is transportation funding at this point. Plus, we have trailer bill pass or new bill pass and some engineering. We're saying that the top items that we do wish for the states would fall of cash that could have been addressed at a higher level than it was. But we are busy. You'll in my weekend Friday updates. You'll read that we're really at any minute that we have available. We're working on the 2022-23 budget, and we always split off and get to the open inspection and working on time. But there'll be, there was a lot to look at with the May revise, and so we're going to work through that. And our estimated balances for especially the COVID funds, is we'll need to also start having conversations about do we reprioritize some of those funds if we're not being able to hire or have after school programs and conversations like that. Any questions?
Thank you, Jenny. I'm going to stay up here. 10.2 facility update. The chief business official, and I imagine Evan is joining you.
And Jim's going to be invited to join me today, as always. Whether you like it or not. I'm kidding. Jim loves this. We'll squeeze it here together. Bye. Yes. So I want to just make sure this is on. There we go. Okay, so according to the governance calendar, we do have a facilities update for you this evening. And it will highlight some items that Jim has and his team have accomplished, some construction data, and a couple other things that might, these are in your board packets as well. I do have a couple extra by my guess there also. So, okay, so what the main item that we're reporting on to do is really our routine repair and maintenance program, RM for short, and this is resource 8150 in our budget, and that's set by education code that we must contribute a minimum of 3% of our budget expenditures, and that's calculated year into our maintenance. There we go back several years before LCFS, contributing to the deferred maintenance account. Also, with that, the district would be eligible to defer maintenance funds, but the state kind of rolled those dollars into LCFS. We actually we deposit more than the mandated 3%. The number one is we've had serious projects that we can work on, like asphalt, fascia repair, blown off roofs, gas line breaks.
Started it.
So we have a slide on that.
That scaffolding, Jim, I closed my eyes.
There's no scap.
No, it's not, there's on a line. Wait, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they usually wear, they wear like fall protection and
And
not on their roads.
All right, just making sure.
Yeah. Pardon?
You don't need to.
it was good.
Hopefully they've had some experience
Yes,
working
they have a
on
lot
that.
of-
Okay. Okay. And it's not Santa Ana, it's Santa Ana season. So, and one of the things we're able to do is with that excess that we contribute to routine repair maintenance, we do work with Heather, and that's incorporated in our LCAP too, on some additional services and needs that are addressed in the LCAP. Okay, with Measure W, really there was some residual amounts in the fund, but building has been complete. We're still going to keep it on our books because we will have, it will undergo a last audit and well, the citizens oversight, they will need more time to wrap that up. Okay, you have a snapshot of a 5-year history of what our expenditures are actual and then current year budgeted expenditures in the routine repair maintenance account. And this year, we did have some funds that we purposely carried over that we were unspent last year and carried over and included this year for summer work. We're actually going to do that again. Jim's been holding some money aside, but we have to report the expenditures when they're incurred. So what we'll do is when we close the books, that number will be smaller, but we'll carry those funds over because it will be summer work that's largely patient. Okay, just since we last talked, we had, what do our work orders look like? Do you want to take this one?
We had 605 completed, 15 that we declined back to the sites for different reasons. 8 duplicates, and then we have 44 that were in progress right now. Taken care of.
And we did have, that was an increase of 153 over the last 6-month period. So what that, kind of when Jim and I sat down and looked at that, really because we're not doing as many projects, large scale projects, that we're able to address those daily work orders and maybe flowers for projects with our.
It's basically a 1/3 increase.
Probably to achieve that too.
I think the school's realizing that more work's being done. So there's more people looking, more eyes out there finding us work.
So kind of optimism in terms of kind of the work or something. So people can kind of work saying, oh, actually, I can do this.
And are you seeing anything in those, like that they're all this type of, what types of items are dealing with?
It's everything. Plumbing to, we don't have the plumbing issues this year, for the last 6 months, because of all the new flush we got. So we're working on little plugs on those.
That's why I was wondering if it's uncovering potential bigger issues down the road.
And I think along with that, we've been working with our principals and management meetings about, being able to work with Jim directly and building those relationships too. And we'll get that work order in. And, we may not be able to afford it, may not be something that we do, might have to be put on a wish list, but at least start having those conversations. Our department staffing, we do have 4 skilled maintenance workers. We did, before COVID, we did, through the budget committee, we did have some positions that were slated for layoffs. And with that, one maintenance position, one clerical, actually 2 clericals and 1 administrator. But we were able to retain those with the use of COVID dollars. So we do have 4 skilled maintenance workers. 1 is still being paid with ESSER funds. 2 skilled ground workers, a shared secretary, and a supervisor.
Patient LAE, we're starting that this summer. We're gonna have the bids, should come to you guys hopefully next board meeting. The approval for the woodwork and also for the paint. We did get all the windows at MPH. Now. Finally got the materials in. And then we got the air quality assessment survey.
And that we reported the results of that air quality survey, the tall handful of board meetings ago, where we realized, what we earmarked in the S3 plan couldn't touch what we needed to do. So, which spurred conversation for Snyder Electric and potential for going out for a bond in 2020. And if people don't know too, and Jim worked really hard on the MPH windows because they were so old and because it wasn't, just all new windows done with the previous modernization at the site. Every single one of those windows had to be retrofitted by the company. I mean, it was a very enormous. That's why it was also very expensive. Because there was no other window that could work without refabricating, making it slide.
Full amount of walls, replacing.
Each and every one. So that was a couple of years maybe in the planning, trying to get that work on, just having no successes working with vendors. You can't do it, to finally being able to have the funds to run with them. Was a bonus. We'll chat in the next couple slides, but we have some completed projects just to highlight and brag about. We did do some elevator carpet repair, and that's actually, we do get inspected by our elevators, and that's a requirement. We did some, and most of these you had in your Friday updates, but PE fencing for our team rooms and services moved to room high. Scoreboard, which will have a slide on its own. Our gas valve that was sheared off because of the roof that fell on it. Rain gutters, which we Jim's trying to replace or install, even for the first time, run rain gutters whenever possible because of the damage to the front of school once we opened up. It's all
Water
damage. Yes.
So once we replace all the wood, we're trying to get the rain gutters up, make sure it doesn't happen long term.
In the activities office here at the high school, a new HVAC system was put in that section of the school.
The MPH fixed the two water leaks that were out in the field that ended up getting replaced. The elevator carpet at that school, and also we repaired the ambulance center. BOE, the kinder fence for the privacy, we got taken care of, and also cattle gates to keep the school locked up on Saturdays and over the summer. LAE, we did the glass repair in front of the office. At CHE, we put a new heating system in the kinder.
Jim, was it the entire fence at DOE or was it partial?
It was the entire fence except for the gates that open up.
Awesome. It's good for DOE.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And a lot of these items that are safety or school climate related, we're also, because through hijack this report a little bit, through the COPS grant that we're applying for with help from Schneider Electric Aircraft Rating. Part of it is establishing what we've done for ourselves already before we ask for it. And being able to, we've gone through 3 years of facilities reports that we presented to you and really saw, hey, we're trying our best with what we have, but it's not enough. So therefore we would. So a lot of these things, when we're addressing them, maybe for not that reason at the time, it's helped us now substantiate or tell our story. Oh. Okay, Jim and I will tag team on this one. The Room High scoreboard. Now that is the Mentor, school score visions kind of idea of what it will look like at completion. It's not up yet, and it's not completed yet, it's in process. But we have had final ESA approval, and why don't you talk about the new gym, completion?
The new gym, we ended up getting both of those boards up, and they've used them for a couple of basketball games and wrestling.
And then we've had some district costs on this project, so we've had district costs of just over about 132,000 to date, and we had of the donated funds of 275,000. We've spent 146 and change of that, and then because of just supply chain and what's kind of craziness with parts, the actual outdoor board will cost probably $20,000 to $30,000 more than we planned, and Stephanie has other donor funds that she's going to kind of co-fund, and that will be incorporated in another slide, and hopefully it'll just repeat that dollar amount.
Looking at the mock-up of the scoreboard on the bottom, the shield and the various advertisers, is that going to be an option for us to be able to possibly get advertisers to directly that way?
Yes, part of the software that comes with the scoreboard is having fundraising. With that, it has student curriculum, so students can use the scoreboard and they can operate the scoreboard. And then we have board policy on advertisements, which the site we've already talked to Tori, and the site on, you know, the internal controls needed when you start having advertisers and donations for the advertisements on school. So we've supplied that board policy. We started working on this, what, a year and a half ago, maybe? Okay, close to a year. So I'm not sure if we've had any updates to that work policy, but when we're there, we'll make sure they know to write some internal controls on that, the uses of that, and their distribution of the equity. Yeah. We have some more completed projects. We service our elevators, of course, district-wide on an annual basis, our fire inspections and extinguishers, our fire alarm. We, over the past 2 years, you've probably seen some of Jim's agenda items where we've spent some money on upgrades and repairs to our fire alarm system. Has every fire alarm been updated? Yeah, everyone in the district now. Meeting with contractors.
Generators get serviced every year. Now, to make sure they're up and ready to go. The warehouse storage moved up to the grounds building, put it more by itself. Actually, it gives us more room for all the PPE items that came in. HVAC inspections and surveys with CPM. And site inspections and surveys with Schneider Electric. Working on that. We got a couple more plans. Every site. And then our sold surplus equipment that we've been working on. We've got all of our old equipment.
And if you've been to the maintenance yard, or if you've seen it maybe 10 years ago and you see it today, it's really night and day. Jim's really done a lot of cleanup. We had steel and parts, really almost junkyards.
Stuff.
Hoarding. I'm not the only one that doesn't throw stuff away in my office, but I'll get better. Yeah, so just doing that and, was able to generate some revenue. So, and clean things up, I think it adds to I've heard compliments on just people working in that environment too, and it feels like a better place to work when it's nice. Organized, yes.
Not wasting time digging through stuff.
The projects and needs. The fascia paint, we still need to get down. We need to do MPH. Mountain. GEC.
LAE scheduled this summer.
MH. Yeah, mountain ramps were repaired and replaced. We just have to repaint them this year during the summer because the winter weather didn't play with us. The concrete ramp at CHE, we We need to still work on that, getting that replaced. Still carpet and flooring district wide, rekeying of the entire district. Furniture upgrades and classroom renovations. We continue to work on the HVAC replacements. New roofs district wide, the big one. We need to start looking at and really finding money for it. And then new irrigation systems, help us save water.
How old are our roofs?
They're, well, between 12 and 15.
So when the first round of Measure W funds, which I believe we received in 2009, right around there, in 2009, 2010, roofing projects were one of the first projects that the district took on. So you figure 2009, 2010, those roofs were done. Except with Lake Gregory was and Grandview were not included in Measure W because discussions of closing those two schools over the last 2 years, we were able to get Lake Gregory done because that one was so bad. It was even if we did sell the building and we're going to move, we had a liability. I mean, especially with having that Grandview with the insurance claim for the water damage. But so we're really looking at 10 to 12 roofs district wide. So we worked with research. You can explain it way more than I can, and being able to patch it and keep it going. But that would be something we talked about if we look at a bond. That is one we can think to get item that would be included in our needs.
I think it's the best way to protect everything inside of our.
Nothing older than 15? Well, good.
Okay, so we have some other future projects needed. We need LED light lighting, of course, district-wide. We did do quite a big project here at the high school with our Prop 39 funds. And then as we replace broken, Jim's replacing with LED. So at different sites and different locations. So we are doing LED. We do have some grounds equipment. We've tried to purchase equipment here and there throughout the last couple of years, but one of the things to work on our field is perhaps with a bond, a commercial blower. Those are incredibly expensive.
I was gonna ask what's the price on commercial?
Are used.
$80,000.
Yeah,
It's for a demo model they had when we checked last time for prices.
kitchen equipment replacement and renovations are still needed, although the budget next year will include the kitchen infiltration grant. So we're excited about that. It won't cover all of our needs. So this is still a need, even with the new money for that. We need additional cloud pumps on some of the other vehicles. And time, we will need to replace our skip loaders. I don't know how they're hanging on. They must have been very well built at the time. I think they're in the 70s.
And 70, I think once 80, 81.
I got what brand that was because they.
Yes.
They're doing great. So we want to continue working on a formal preventative maintenance plan and global use of school duty with our staff using more technology. We think that's these baby steps.
So can we go back to the rekeying of the entire district? Are we talking about physical keys or are we trying to do touchless, you said digital?
Either
What's the price difference?
still be priced difference.
There's a need regardless of which way we decide to go.
Right.
There's a need for rekey just because of the kind of lack of before Jim came and before any of the people here was our key policy has been lacked in the district. So there is a need, whether we go to cards or touch, either way. But one of the things that Jim and Snyder Electric are doing on their walks is to get quotes for that, and that isn't allowable use under the COPS grant. So do we take Grim High, let's say, as an example, as our first school? And what can we get done with the money we're awarded for keyless entries or even just rekeying? or more secure.
We've also talked about rekeying the main entrance at every school site with the key cards and starting out as a pilot that way so that, you know, with those keyless entries will then log in who's coming in and principals will have access to that data if someone leaves a door unlocked. So it will increase security in each of the sites if we do their main entry point door. And that's what we did when I was principal school that we built, and the door was the key cards and then the regular doors internally were keys. So we talked about looking at that and we're working with that with our sheriff as well. Is that a good start, or should we focus on one site? Or they've already made recommendations for the front doors at CAG, I believe in VOE from our sheriff's department.
Yeah, I would agree doing main doors and common, like larger common areas first, and then getting to the individual classrooms when we get to that. But
Yeah, and then like, would that include the both entrances, that PC entrance?
well,
I think
along
there was
the,
almost eight or 10.
yeah, push along the creator tank,
Yeah.
directly. Yeah.
I'm super excited because I have lost the PTA closet key 2 times, and I guess I should admit that too, but
Mental note.
I'm looking for it
Don't give her another.
Question about school, dude. I know this has been on this report the past couple of years, and I remember you discussing the efficiencies that you gained by having it. What are the barriers to us getting it?
Well, I
School, dude.
we both have a little bit probably to say about that, because we can do it now and have the, and have a crew use, a Chromebook or an iPad with mobile data attached and get that learning process and use of the application. Although, I think that being said, I haven't had experience with that, and Jim has in his previous district versus an iPad, Chromebook versus an actual cell phone. And the cell phone, I'll let you speak to that, but was better with the district because they were able to flip it on a clip. I'll let you.
Plus you were able to call. So if you had questions or you had an emergency call, you could call right to them. The radios that we have in the truck are great if you're in the truck. But most of the time, I hope you're out of the truck, so you don't have the radio.
So the holdup for implementation is approving the cell phones for all of your staff.
And we really haven't then taken that next step to bring it to cabinet or to bring it here, just because of kind of being more in a reactive mode since COVID started, to be honest. It's just been something that's sorry, Jim, that's been on our back burner. But you know, if we wanted to do some type of cell phone policy, but then that leads to a bigger conversation of who else gets a cell phone, and we need to maybe prioritize that. But and there's ordering systems. They can say, I need this part, we don't have it. There's some tie into their inventory system. There's probably, I would say you would need another Michelle for quite a few months just getting the system going. That's secretary. So getting and tying in and then they get automatic alerts on their filters and
There's a lot of different options that we can use in the school. We have full application.
taking that. On our white fleet, this has not changed, but we have, you can see here, I won't read every line about what our white fleet looks like. We're serviced by our transportation mechanics that service the white fleet, and for jobs that they can't do, we take down the hill. And we have, you know, one of the things we haven't talked about with you is we do have one very, very large box truck that we've only used a handful of times in the last maybe 5 years, when we had to move maybe a full entire classroom from one school site to the next, but it's really not being used. And that was its own use that we have. Jim and I meant surplus it, keep it, probably minute we surplus it, there's a need for it.
Maybe wait till
Yeah. Yes.
Vehicles, we have a CNS truck. We have a mail van right now that is no good anymore. Technology truck.
Just on the way to being no good.
We have 2 vans at the high school that used to be used for security. So we want to try to surplus next. And then the SUV at the high school that nobody uses anymore that we would also like to surplus.
And right now, these vehicles are sitting, people aren't using them, but they're filthy inside. Both chipmunks in the engines. So that's one of the things. And we put that on there to also highlight one of the things that Jim and Jen in transportation really took on this last year, 2 years, is using gov deals. So to surplus, and do you want to just talk a second about how that works?
The Gov Deals is pretty much an auction site for government agencies. We put out, people bid on it. Whoever gets the money bid, then they end up coming here. They pick up the merchandise and we get the money.
Yeah, and these items are formally surplus by the board of trustees before too, but that's something that you guys took on. It's been great because it's been like, let's clean the yard out and hey, let's do stuff deals. So that's been nice. We wanted,
Get that in detail. Have we analyzed the difference of renting the box versus trying to maintain insurance and all that on a box truck that's not used?
The maintenance on it is pretty low.
Because it sits. But could you,
The insurance,
like you talked about surplusing, could you surplus it around it? Therefore, when you needed something 3 times, rent something.
that's an idea. It's for also.
that's the avenue I'd like to do.
Yeah. We added a couple slides in, this is a facility report. It ties into it. Let me get there. We wanted to talk about our district bus fleet as well. We don't have a formal transportation, report on the governance calendar, but there could be some agenda items coming, or some discussions coming before an agenda item regarding the bus fleet. So we've asked Jim and I, and we've sat down several times just to talk about things and work on the report together, and we regularly anyway. But we've asked Jen to put some data together that we use to compile this on just what's the makeup of her fleet, and also with so many conversations we've had with Cindy and the Lakeside bill, and telling our story with slow fill versus fast fill, what are our needs. We're working on some transportation grants right now with Edison, and then supplement it with EPA. Unfortunately, Edison, the electric vehicles, there's some minibus options. I updated you that would really take on 1 or 2 routes that we can do it if we had the desire to start kind of like jump into that technology, start moving towards that way of thinking for our district. Or even with a grant, we could probably buy 2 or 3 gas buses still, with what our share, because the money for the special ed buses aren't there. And for electric right now, a big bus just doesn't make practical sense for us. And you can't go the mileage demands on our mountain, but if we can use a minibus, but then minibuses aren't, they're only partially funded by about 1/3 under the Edison grant. So there's a complementary grant with the EPA that might be able to be our match for them. But at some point, we will have some bus fleet issues, just like we have facility issues, and really competing for the same dollars with, we have, with the sale of our building or future grants or a bond. We have a lot of bus needs versus roof needs versus carpet versus classroom equipment. Where do we put our dollars? And I wanted you to just be aware of kind of what's coming down the horizon on our needs for the bus fleet as well. And then I wanted you to see just the mileage that our buses are on. That are on our buses. And when we have over 100 miles from one end to one end on our school district boundary, 100 square miles or 1 linear, I'm not sure. Yeah.
They're all hard.
There are hard miles. Had a conversation today about Jen with maybe needing increased parks budget, having to work for that. And that's a lot of money. So we're hard miles on our buses. And so when we talk about it, I won't go through each line item, but I wanted you to have some data on the age of our bus fleet and the miles on our bus fleet.
Today in the state superintendent meeting for AXA, they talked about the transportation bill. It is getting traction about transporting all, and for at least every student with an IEP. So that is gaining traction against AXA's advocacy.
With funding, right?
No funding attached. So they talked about that today for a little bit, and there was some angst on the call, but they so the assembly is hearing AXA's concerns, but the Senate is not. So it'll be an interesting time in June to see if that, I don't know what you're hearing, Cindy, in your meetings, but if that transportation bill will pass, should have implications for rail for sure.
And what interesting, just sidebar at the top really is the big push was through the AQMD was for compressed natural gas buses. So which we jumped 2 feet in with that with Measure W, with grants, with our infrastructure. We've added to our fleet, we've added to our infrastructure to the point where we have now more buses than the infrastructure will really fuel efficiently, but we're managing. And then we're getting 3 new AQMD buses from a 2017 grant this summer, by the end of the summer, right around there. And then we'll crush our last 3 diesels that we're unable to use on the road. But with that, AQMD is no longer supporting CNG, and most of the grants are not supporting CNG because it's not, there is still an environmental impact with, it's not zero emissions, it's low emissions, but not zero emissions. And we've about tripled our natural gas budget this year because of the price of gas, right? Natural gas that we're fueling. So, we're not seeing that savings over diesel anymore. And just new money to support the infrastructure we really just finished getting to isn't being supported anymore. So kind of having that thought, like what do we do? Use our own money to keep natural gas going, jumping into electric.
Really quickly, I mean, we've spoken about this, but for if there's an audience out there, why is it so difficult for us to go electric in our district? What is the concerns about it?
I can probably get a better answer from Jen, so I will reach out to her, but in a nutshell is the charge on that will not last for the time for each route. So by the time we leave, go to one end and come back, we need to plug in again. And when we have 20 buses that we need to plug in, we won't have that infrastructure to plug in before we have to go back out. And then we also took our field trips down the hill. So when we have a big county, and when we're driving to Mammoth, or when we're driving to even a CIF event, being able to get that charge back.
Thank you. I just want to highlight, like, we're not opposed to being a green district. So the fact that our geographical location doesn't allow us to do that is why we haven't jumped into the electric.
And with the mini buses, that's probably where I would like you to have that. We'd be kind of thinking about that, because do we want to spend, if we don't get the matching grant, that would be our matching, do we want to spend some of that money on some of that technology? Would be what I would ask for you to start thinking about.
And back on the 3 buses that are diesel, we're already committed to the 3 new CNG buses.
Yes, and it's a 1-for-1 where that diesel bus must be crushed to get the other bus. Now, we don't have to do that, but our diesel buses aren't allowed on the road.
So we have to do that.
What other option?
We can turn them into something cool, outdoor
Portable
classrooms.
classrooms,
I've seen them used as maker spaces and STEM labs to just go around the district. We did that.
Let's see your buses.
Yeah, that was neat.
Well, other districts that have large territories like Victor Valley are struggling with that same conversation that they can't get across their district to do their routes with electric buses. It's not for want of zero emissions, it's just because of the way that everything is, the technology for those doesn't allow for that. So I don't know, it's a struggle of, there is the governor's electric bus grant, but not everyone gets to participate in that.
So the next page of this, we really already spoke to most of the data that's on there. So I'll let you read it and have that for your information. I think it does add to our districts, not just ours, kind of story of being, when you're talking about transportation and being fully funded. Fully funded might be on the operational side, might be fully funded. Okay, if a bill passed for that, but then what about on the other side of the one-time uses or the every 5-year needs? Is there funding for that? Your mic's not. Okay, there's just some funding options here for you. We talked about the contribution from our base. 3, and what's mandated is 3%, of course, of our expenditures, and the excess is identified in our LCAP. Remaining funds for Measure W, 0 remaining funds for state facility, $0, and Fund 40 zeros. That's actually not a negative amount because that means that we did a lot of really cool projects and got some stuff done with those dollars that they were intended. So.
Zero was good because we used them.
We used them, passed all the audits, bring it on. I think it's a couple, especially I think we had a lot of success with modernization phase 3. A lot of that was with Paul and Jim's help on getting, under budget actually. And I don't know if a lot of people can say under budget on construction projects. So that was awesome. Yeah. We do have Fund 1. We'll be talking about our reserve balances at the next board meeting, but we do have our Fund 1 reserve that we talked about back in the infancy of LCFF, and it was, I think, the weighted average formula. And some troubling times we were able to transfer from other funds into the general fund for fiscal solvency. We didn't touch all the money, and then we added to it with some forest reserve dollars. And so that prior Fund 14, which was deferred maintenance dollars and forest reserves, is still sitting in Fund 1. We'll look at committing that formally. Fund the Grandview insurance claim buyout is still sitting in Fund 1. We'll commit that formally. If we ever want to fix Grandview or move back into it, that money is part of the insurance claim that we got bought out. We do have some JPA loss prevention allocation. This is not JPA grant fund when you said, oh, we've applied for a little grant for X, Y, or Z. This is actually our own money. So this is, we have discretion on what we use this for. It's intended though for safety items. It gets built up though little by little every year. This is several years worth. So think of it as one-time funds. And then we have about 800,000 in our Fund 25 developer fees that will start the additional amounts contributed to or deposited to that account each year will be reduced drastically due to our justification study that we've approved, and we set the fees a couple board meetings ago because our fees went down so much for what we can charge per square.
Remind me the developer fees.
That is on square footage for new construction or a remodel in excess of 500 square feet of living space.
And the money from the insurance on Grandview, are there restrictions on those ones if we don't go back there?
So there may be things that must be repaired here to sell it.
All depends if we work that out in an offer.
Anything else?
Well, you can look at it on your own. The remaining slides are just pictures. You have that in your group. I don't know if we have very many audience members.
Your team is doing this artwork?
That was not us. We didn't.
But we can scroll through that, or you can look at it at your leisure. We finished up the remaining, all of these pictures were noted somewhere in the report or in a Friday update, interior scoreboards. Okay, that lovely privacy fence for kindergartners, so middle schoolers don't yell at them through the fence anymore. Our new offsite storage. And then
Thank you, Jenny and Jackie. We always appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
11.1, setting direction. 11.0, setting direction. 11.1, self-evaluation, development action plan, and setting board goals, board of trustees. Mrs. Murphy.
Here you go, I have your results. We didn't get to this as last board agenda, so we carried it forward to this meeting. Every year we elect to go through the CSBA board self-evaluation. And then instead of having CSBA interpret our results, I do that for the board, and then we go through our goals together. So I've used the same format for the last 2 years, so this is year 3 of us doing that. So please note that all 5 board members took the survey this year. So that's great. We've had 100% participation for 2 years in a row. That wasn't always the case for previous boards. The survey consists of 58 questions. And so, oh yes, Mark, I'm going really fast because I don't know a lot of slides. So, let's see. Here we go. So right here we have 3 areas of strengths for the boards based on your results. So how I look at those results, there are 4 areas that we could rate ourselves, or you could rate yourselves. A green would be that this was a strength for most members. A blue would be it was a strength for the simple majority. Yellow would be an area of growth for the simple majority. And a red battery would mean that the area of growth for most members. So our strengths came under 3 areas. One is questions 19 through 24 under board operations. So I've given those to you, so if you wanted to look at them and see what you did. So if you see that section is entirely green. So I should say 18 through 24, not 19, but this 100% green for most of you in that area. The second area is questions 25 through 31, and that entire area is green, and that is on how we conduct ourselves at board meetings. And the last area that was all green was board development, and this talks about the training and the things that we do with the board in governance. So this is based on almost always response in each of the sections. There were 4 areas of growth, and again, I determined those by what sections had. In our case, we did not have any reds and yellows. So really, an area of growth is because we had some blues, and so I picked the four areas that seem to have more blue than green, but really that's still in the scheme of things, that's still very positive. So roles and responsibilities for questions 7 through 11, which I guess you can see on the data reflects that there was some difference of opinion on questions 10 and 11, which talks about the board gives directions to the superintendent only in board meetings. and individual board members do not attempt to direct the superintendent. The next section was on board culture, just had 3 areas of blue. And so again, it was like a 4-1 on this question. So the board manages internal conflict in a productive manner. The board members demonstrate they understand others' perspectives. And board members usually discuss questions about agenda items with the superintendent prior to the board meeting. And then section setting direction, questions 36 through 39. That section was almost all blue with like a 3-2 in most areas. So setting direction talks about, and we've talked about this as a board and as a cabinet, about mission and vision and the work that was kind of curtailed because of, and I hate to use the COVID word again, but that we got side rail because we couldn't meet in person. The board adopts long-range priorities. It uses the district's mission and core beliefs to drive district performance. So, and then the last section that some blue was community leadership. And again, most of these answers were often and not almost always. So it talks about the board pursues partnerships to support different district efforts. Educational issues, provides community leadership on educational issues, cohesive messages to communicate about district priorities, and advocates on behalf of students in public education at the local and state and federal level. Which for me, that one was, and I know you're reading yourselves, but I think we do a really good job of advocating at the state and the federal level with Cindy's participation in SANDABs and having legislative reports to every board meeting and advocacy that I've done in the areas of technology and access. So looking at those areas, I will take a brief stop for discussion.
Would you like to discuss a specific one of those areas at all, or add in thoughts for improvement?
Or praises for strengths.
For that, we've identified over and over again that we need to go through the development process with our different educational partners, students, parents, employees, community members, developing revisiting mission, vision statements, and core beliefs, because some of it we like just some tweaks, but we haven't done that in a while. So we recognize that. So let's work with that. That was one of our goals. Yeah.
I agree. I think each time we go to TSB or the national like reworking that is such like a project that we all want to undertake. You know, we want to make sure that our vision is in alignment with what the community wants, with what our stakeholders want. And I'm not saying that it isn't at this point. It just requires, it's not going to take for fresh eyes, but it is a lot of effort. And they often tie it in with, you know, marketing and rebranding and that type of stuff and getting people all in alignment, moving in the same direction. So yeah, we've talked about it every year, but this is something we want to do, so we just need to dig our heels and get it done.
If I had my wish about changes in our board meetings, there would be 2 things. One is a stronger student voice at our board meetings. We used to have, prior to COVID, like the drama kids would come and perform. We have a desire to change the governance calendar for the board meeting calendars next year to go back to sites. So we're missing that kid piece. And I also don't believe that we do enough to, I tried my best to do the RIM family videos, but we've got to come up with another way to recognize the hard work and what is going on in each of our schools with our employees, administrators, classified, certificated, and we don't do enough of that. And we need to do more of that and highlighting. Both of our newspapers are very supportive and will work with us to highlight those individuals. That would be a recommendation for improving our current communication plan for press is we've got to find a way to bring that room family stuff back and get people here. And if it's, another suggestion I think somebody had from you guys going to the National School Board thing was we need to have a kid every time here to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. So I think there are some great opportunities to have showcase our students and our staff that we haven't taken advantage of, and that would be a positive change, I think, for our board meetings.
I couldn't agree with you more. At CSBA, one of the sessions I went to, referencing the Lighthouse study, but talking about how the board meeting agenda should focus, I think it was either 2/3 or 3/4 of the items should really be focusing on student achievement and celebrating student staff achievement. And so we do have our governance calendar. We do have a lot of other things that we definitely have to discuss, but I think there's a lot more opportunity for celebration and recognition and understanding about that.
Perhaps Dr. Fricker has some good ideas to help us with that in the transition. The next slide goes over our current board goals that we set. The River World Unified School District School Board is committed to a common vision. The school board will collaborate and inform the community on district priorities, enrollment progress, celebrations. There we go. Celebrations, needs and opportunities for improvement. The school board adopts a fiscally responsible budget aligned to the district's vision and goals, and the board sets directions for the school district. It was the task of the board to write success indicators for the school year. That task was not completed. So we don't have those to go over. We do have an opportunity to look at those goals, set some new goals, and then relook at setting those success indicators so that we have them in the fall.
So I think that number one can just stay as it is.
Yes.
That one of the success indicators, I'm willing to work on this time. And then is to start the process of revised review and revised. Depends on how much looking back on that vision, mission statement, and our core beliefs. And then there's also a way to, as you said, Natalie, brand them, market them, make it so it's almost everyday language. How do we do that? That needs to be set in there as a success indicator. Like how well do you get to that setting?
If we have them and no one knows them and no one lives them, what's the point?
The second goal on there touched on what you were just talking about, Michelle, because I think the value of bringing in people to really celebrate what they're doing. It's not about us informing, it's about us celebrating what they're doing. So I'm wondering if that's the same thing or if there's a different.
Well, part of the intent on this one is to have more two-way communication with the community. Time with trustees was more consistent this year. So I think we did much better this year in time with trustees and I think that especially with the mask and the vaccine issues, those time with trustees in the fall, late fall were, at least for now, were very valuable. We had 27 people, which is amazing. I know that sounds maybe out there, but not very many, but it is for us. 27 people showed up, yay!
And just so that you have time with trustees, when two of our board members go out and they like 3 communities, which would be Crestline, Running Springs, and Lake Arrowhead. And we publicize those, and the community comes, sometimes they have 2 people, and the biggest one we have is 20. So, and, they just bring questions and concerns, and I kind of like a listening circle, so that you have the context of what they're talking about.
And any questions we can't answer, we take notes, we send that all to Michelle so that she can develop responses from the cabinet, and then we can email those out back to those that were if it's a comment refrain. Michelle can put that within her communication. That's how we did it.
But Michelle, I think you're spot on by saying that we've lost something by not going to the individual sites to hold our board meetings. So in the past, we would do them at all of the schools, and because of COVID restrictions, we've been limited to here. And that was really the opportunity for them to tell more of their stories for coming into their community, and we did get better attendance when we were doing them at all of the school sites versus just
The
where.
principals get to show off.
Yeah.
We'd like you to show off, Mr. Hamilton.
So we look forward to getting back to that.
I think that we should make it clear that when we're at the school sites, that we do have kids do some presentation, like when we, like going to LA. If those kids sing the Leader and Me song, I love that Leader and Me song. I want them to come and sing the Leader and Me song, because I can get inspired about that, and their little.
Yeah, I think we had the early act kids presented VOE one year. We've had little plays and kids sing, and we just, even we're here, we don't.
So does number 2 take into effect that goal, or do we need to take the show to the road?
I know that was, that we always go to the show on the road. COVID stopped that, and we chose not to go on the road because it was for the safety.
I think it encompasses that. It is the last word that say opportunities for involvement. And if we're out of the sites versus here, then that provides opportunities for involvement, and then we can incorporate those celebrations and things at those board meetings. I think 2 needs to stay.
I agree. And 3 is a no-brainer and staying, you know.
I would say drop 2, I would say add.
Well, part of that, it goes into success indicators.
Yes.
How do you want to gauge your success? If that is by more students attending board member meetings to show off the schools, to show off their programs, that's a success indicator. Time with trustees was a success indicator. Probably keep it in as a success indicator to just make sure we stay on task with that. We do have, an election coming up, and we have no idea what's going to happen. So we just want to make sure that we are very defined in our success indicators, so that new board members have to abide by them until we create new board goals.
And I think the budget goal is very important in light of all the one-time funds, and they keep talking about in my meetings about the super categoricals, that they're just stuck on these categoricals. Making sure it's expending all of our ESSER funds and ELOC funds, all the other funds correctly. And and because there weren't success indicators this year, perhaps we keep the 4 goals and then write success indicators for those.
Do we have the timeline to write those success indicators? What has to be said, it needs to be before
Usually-
election.
Usually, we do, I met with Michelle and whoever in June. Or June, let's get over graduation, get them done though, so that they're done, and then we can come back in
Could make
August.
them part of the upcoming board workshop in July.
Hey, that's the next thing on our agenda.
I know it is, I'm segueing, but then you would have Dr. Fricker here. I mean, either
Could
way,
bring
we can
that-
share them with her and I, her communication before weekly now, so we can involve her as well.
Where do we address the declining enrollment, the attempt to try to grow enrollment under 2?
Budget.
2 is starting to
Budget.
sound like everything.
Budget.
3 on budget.
Number 3, budget.
Also, but
That's-
she specifies enrollment.
Sweet, it's covered twice because it's that important.
2 seems like,
You had mentioned earlier, Bill, in terms of possibly adding to it, or what would you want to do differently?
or add a new goal.
We
That
want
covered something, for example, like addressing declining enrollment.
We can add that to 3. They choose the communication of the enrollment, but adding number 3, adopts a fiscally responsible budget.
just add
Right.
taking into account.
That sounds good.
We can add that to our notes, so for goal 3, to add, things about declining enrollment. And revenue.
It's got us 2 sides.
Does that take care of your concerns?
And then
I do think it's really important that we did the steps, so. I would say
yes.
Oh, yeah.
we've got to do that this time.
Yes. So our next steps would be to write goals with success indicators for the 22-23 school year and to share those with the incoming superintendent. I didn't have a name when I wrote this, so there we go.
So 2 of us did it together. Who wants to do it with me? Anybody volunteering?
I'm down, if nobody else is interested.
You guys fight it over, but I know
We can draw, you guys can draw straws. Right?
You can do it now.
Anyway,
Hey, look, you're so polite. It's like the Allstate commercial, you know, where it's courteous drivers. Go.
Courteous board members, I like it.
Yeah.
All right, it's Cindy
I
and
want to
Bill.
do it, but
Okay,
Cindy and Bill.
All right.
thank you. And we'll set a date.
Get you.
Thank you.
That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything that they want to include in self-evaluation, development action plan, and setting for goals? Sounds like you have a good plan moving forward. All right. 11.2, board retreat agenda ideas. Board of trustees.
So, jumping in first again. But I think that one thing that we could be doing with our new superintendent is really creating a strategic plan, so to speak, so that we really need to have that conversation of setting direction, where we want to go, how do we want to get there, have a conversation with, you know, giving her a chance to have input into that, but having some kind of short-term, long-term strategic plan with, so that we have a roadmap. Instead of just, yeah,
Yeah.
and then the other, oh, that's me, yes.
No, go ahead. You have another idea. Just share.
My synapses collided and I had a brief, so just give me a moment to regroup and retrace my steps.
All right, I do have something I wanted to have us focus on the retreat, and that would be math. I was approached by Mr. Lonto after the presentation he made a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about math. So exciting. But he had asked if there was going to be a possibility, some way for him to discuss with all 5 of us, maybe a sitting down, having a powwow, and I explained to him about math, the challenges there. But I was wondering whether it might be a good opportunity to have that discussion at our retreat, depending on the date. He also mentioned Steve Wallace would be, if we were interested, would both come in during the summer to have that conversation with us. And I think it's important for us to really start hunkering down and being able to improve math scores and improve math performance in the district K through 12, TK through 12.
And because we need to set superintendent goals. Collaboratively, superintendent, you should put that on there. Because usually we do it at the main workshop. We don't have that opportunity, so it needs to desperately, because otherwise we have no ability to evaluate. By the way, Dr. Fricker, we follow the CSBA template religiously. Just saying, it helps keep us out of trouble.
So I thought that overlaps. I was the same, if you didn't hear, was that overlaps with what the goals would be, is addressing our scores.
That would be a good source of conversation.
Do you want to, I know that Dr. Fricker hopefully has a calendar here, and she starts July 1. We typically have that the 3rd week of July on a Friday. But we know that the Fridays have been difficult for staff because there are some staff who are in the summer. So looking at a potential date, I think it's okay to invite her into that conversation and look at a date for July. We typically are dark the first 2 weeks of July because
Please God, no,
we allow everybody to take a break. And so, especially now that there's some summer school going on, but we really try to take the first 2 weeks of July and incorporate that 4th of July holiday. So typically it's the 3rd week of July.
So what I took from that was, would July 21st, which is the Thursday, work? That would be our third Thursday. Did I hear that right? Dr. Fricker, does that work for you? Does that work for the board?
Bill is reviewing.
He's calculating.
Let's say that his
Wonderful.
calendar that I'm seeing has lots of writing.
Oh my God.
I think the 21st will.
Well, look at you, leading us in.
Let's plan this for July 21st, and what time do we typically start?
9.
9 a.m. 9 to 4. We bring in lunch.
And we would have that workshop here,
No, and the DO.
or the DL, apologies.
The DO.
And it's not a workshop, it's a retreat. Excuse my mistake. Any other ideas?
No, I think that's enough, because that's a lot. I think we need to hyper focus and get a lot of very clear direction going on so that when everybody comes back in August, we are rocking.
So I'm gonna throw a wrench in.
Oh, okay, so Jordana made the face, so she needs to add something.
And I need to, go ahead.
You cover it.
Can I just mention that we are going to have some recommendations from equity and social justice? And that may be something that we talk about at that time too.
Yeah.
Now we go.
We're gonna have a report for that, but
But
we're
this
gonna have to
is
deal with the recommendations that's coming from that.
understood. Okay, so if we can include that, I mean, I don't want to add something else, but I
Just
really loved when we started, or at least this board started, most of this board started, Michelle. We had gone over our leadership styles and our strengths and, you know, getting to know a new superintendent. I would really love the opportunity to do that. We took a lot of time on it, though. If it could.
Have you taken strengths class?
Okay.
So there you go.
So if we
So
could
she
just
could
get our
share hers.
results, our
Yeah.
strengths class results and us like talk about that so we know what we're getting
Like
into with each other. And just, hey, Sydney's a woo and we all know it, you know, like, let's get to what we are. But I really felt like that helped us
We
work
can
better.
add Heather's in there because we don't have her strengths on our leadership poster. So that'd be good.
Please, and tone it as quickly and concisely as
She doesn't know
possible.
what I'm talking about.
She's
She's gotta take the test.
Thank you.
And then Jordana.
May not be for the retreat, and we never did our NSBA report out.
Yeah, let's not do it at retreat.
No, let's pick one of the board meetings. So we want, we have all the retirees coming on the 9th, so can we do that on our 20?
Yes.
Something board meeting?
Yeah, and totally different subject. Are you planning a time when the sheriff will give us a safety review? Is that on the agenda?
I think that was all tied to a grant, so, but we can give an update and then we can, Jenny and I can work with Dawn and see when and if they could be able to do that. Okay.
Sorry, we have too many ideas. Let's stop our ideas.
That could go under future.
Future agenda item and planning, I'll throw that in. Okay. Okay, thank you. 11.3, Equity and Social Justice Committee report, Board of Trustees, but particularly.
So I'm going to dare Cindy to try to maintain her report to the size of mine. On June 23rd, we anticipate having a presentation from Dr. White, who's been our consultant for the Equity and Social Justice Committee. We have several recommendations that have included. I really appreciated that our committee has included staff, alumni, students, administration, and board. So it's really a good cross-section. So we have recommendations to present. Dr. White will be here for that meeting on the 23rd. Well, we anticipate some of our committee members to be present, and hopefully a couple of students will actually be participating in that presentation. And as I said, we have several recommendations to be considered by the board.
Yeah, it's not good.
Thank you. You can't do that, Cynthia. No, you can't. 11.4 legislative update report, Board of Trustees.
Okay,
Timing you right now.
you can just get away from that, it's not hard. Okay, so first I went to Coast with the Access CSBA. The really great part, we had 2 days of workshops. Natalie is looking at our, that's okay. No, I brought these to look. I don't have enough for everybody. But we had a week behind that that stated the CSBA AXA joint federal priorities, special education, mental health, nutrition, cybersecurity. ESSER flexibility, what we're pushing for is to extend that spending deadline to 2026. We'll see what happens. Teacher shortage was another one. I got when we had O'Reilly's aide because he wasn't available. I got to start off with the special education. I want to thank Jimmy again for the one pager, left it behind, but I was able to talk about our special education story. People are really fascinated that we bus special education kids down a mountain for services we cannot provide. So when I talk about special education busing budget and where it comes from, it's interesting because I calculated, the you can't say the word encroachment, the contribution from LCFF to special education. Everybody has about the same percentage, about 10%. So it was interesting that all of us in the room were saying, yeah, that's about what we spent. That's what's about, it comes from our general fund. Not really sure. Anyways, Intramate Nelson did an amazing job on student mental health. Loved her story from her district. So that was really fun. So we had a lot of people from Victor Elementary, Victor High, and there was Karen Gray from Silver Valley, myself, and then Trinity from Apple Valley. So it was a great group. The first 2 days though, lots of drilling down on federal issues, the federal budget, broadband. We even had a session on polling, a pollster. Thank you, Jordan, because that didn't sound like 2 years. Gave a lot of polling data on education, and one district is actually going to use that in their next bond. So they don't even have to pay for it, it was all provided, which I thought was kind of cool. So this is going to be an annual event now between AXA and CSBA. They're already planning for next year. The really great part, we had a meeting with the FCC to discuss cybersecurity, security, and broadband. And then we had a meeting with the Department of Agriculture, Universal Meals. And we talked, the best meeting I think that everybody was excited for was we went to the Department of Education. It was the first meeting they had since the shutdown from COVID. And we met with Cindy Martin, Deputy Secretary of the Department of Education, who used to be a superintendent in San Diego. So she really knows us really well. So she was excited to meet with California. And we had a great conversation with her in the educational focuses. She had all of her specialty people up on the stage, special education, those different areas. So it was a great conversation. The unfortunate part is that, which they're going to correct this, but she asked a question on like, what are some of our efforts on, what are some of our successes, and there were a couple people who spoke on everything but answering the question. So that's going to be changed. So it was a really great experience. It was really great working with, sitting with school boards from all over the state and talking about the different issues that were on the table at the federal level. So again, we weren't talking state issues, we were talking federal priorities. Then sand apps, I totally realized I did not send you guys, didn't put it in the box, the federal advocacy update, but I'll send that to you, so we don't have to talk about it, because Bill's, watching this clock right now. And for sand apps, we took a position on AB 1941, support position that's from Assembly Member Ting. It regards pupil homelessness, and this bill will require, starting at the beginning of the 2022-2023 year, the inflation adjustment to the base grant to be 15%. It's super COLA that they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. I don't know. Right now it's 6.5% or whatever. So we took a position of support, although there was an interesting discussion on that particular bill. So then I went to delegate assembly. I was really excited that when I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to get my flight, I was not excited. I was thinking about skipping, but I got on the plane with lots of coffee, Natalie, a whole pot. And then I got there, and the day before, while we were doing superintendent interviews, there were a bunch of breakout sessions, and CSBA it had the breakout sessions do statements regarding advocacy, policy, stances. So then Sunday, the statements have been written out, and we voted on those statements, and some of them are super simple. Fair and full funding is important, super simple like that, but also something like no more unfunded mandates. If a mandate does not have any money attached, it's considered unfunded. And what we voted on is how big of a priority should this be for CSBA. There were 25, which was a lot, and we should get that report, which I'll send to you guys, about the ranking of the priorities based upon the voting results. We also took some voting positions on some of the legislation out there. So with that, CSBA did take a support position, as they have for a while, for Assembly Bill 2933. That is the Patrick O'Donnell bill. That is the transportation, 100% of approved costs. This is reimbursement of 100% approved costs for providing home to school transportation services. The bill's funding formula reflects regional cost variations and individual circumstances, a necessary distinction in a state as large and geographically diverse as California. So this takes into account what your actual transportation costs are for your district, taking that and reimbursing it 100%. That's AB 2933. It does have traction. It is competing with the Senate bill, the Skinner bill, which is a Connie Leyva was a co-author with that, Senator Leyva, and it would require every single district to provide home to school transportation. So those districts that don't currently provide it, too bad, so sad for you, if this bill process, that is going to happen. But the interesting part is the language in terms of the funding part has changed from being like a per drive time and that kind of stuff to 100% reimbursable. So we'll see how this passes. CSBA does not like that bill because it will require all districts, rather than AB 2933 says we'll reimburse your costs if you're doing transportation, but we're not going to make you do transportation. Then there's 2 bills that CSBA is sponsoring in regards to school board elections and recalls, basically talking about recall processes and making it harder for people to go, oh, you were just elected, well, I don't like you, but so I'm going to go ahead and start recall. Because the process of recall is so expensive. I mean, it really can be crippling to a smaller district who's in declining enrollment like us. Then we have the Senator Portantino bill, which is at Senate Bill 830. That's the one that is trying to address the whole conversation of changing the way that we fund, not on the EDA, you know, how we've had the conversation, but on enrollment. Well, the interesting part about this, it doesn't really make a ton of changes and actually increase the categorical program that actually almost runs into conflict with LCFF. So it kind of restricts your funding in a little bit. And so the real conversation really needs to stick with changing it to be funding on enrollment, not on EDA. Because as kids, even if 2 kids come into the classroom, you still have to put the lights on, you still have to have a teacher in that classroom. Then of course you have the vaccine, and that one had been pulled, SB 71, but we have the controversial bill, Senate Bill 866, minors bill that would allow minors 12 years or older to be able to get the vaccine without asking their parents and getting parent permission. CSBA has taken no position on that bill. And then there's a bunch of bills that are going forward. Michelle already sent you the what has been passed out in committee, what has basically died in committee, and you guys can take a look at that. What I would recommend as we go forward, especially on a bill like the transportation bill, is that we discuss how our stance on that bill compose on like we did with the Lake Star, working with cabinet, a position paper, so to speak, that can be turned into a letter form that we can use for advocacy, get to our lawmakers, and to really push for the discussion to change. Because I think it's important. I was told that the stories that we told, especially the Lake Star bill, are very effective. The discussion we had with Senator Leyva on the Skinner bill, the transportation bill, that particular transportation bill, changed her mind in terms of the fund. So we can make a difference. I mean, we can make those changes, but I think that it's important for us to be organized in that manner. And so I think that we should maybe have a discussion in this form, and then like the transportation they'll put it on the agenda as taking a vote for a stance, and then we can develop a position paper. That's my recommendation, is becoming a little bit more active participants in speaking up.
And Cindy, you know, as Michelle was saying, with our legislative update report and the fact that some of us, you know, feel like we could do a better job at advocating at the local, state, and federal levels. It's not that we do a poor job, right? We're not scoring ourselves terribly, but you have really set such a high standard that I think it's the rest of the board wanting to feel as engaged and involved in that as you are. So thank you for your work in that. And, you know, I think that the letter that we did do on the Lake Star bill is a wonderful example of that. I would caution us as a board to be mindful, like we can't all be 100% at every area of all of the things that we have to look at and do. And so being a little bit more strategic of who's going to handle each area is something that will help all of us and future boards. Because Cindy does do a great job at that, but I know there's times where you don't want to be involved in that, and it's just not realistic.
Well, I think that by having a discussion in this report and being able to say, hey, do all of us support AB, the transportation assembly bill? Thank you, 2933. Then what we can do is take an active stance. We can all take that stance. We can have that paper done, and then we can all take that paper with us to advocate, whether it's in the community, because we want them to be able to do letter writing, hand out sample letters based on our position paper, that kind of stuff. So really super easy. We just can take it to one more step, and then we're all active.
Thank you, Cindy, for what you do. And I think that really moves to a level for the board to be more involved in advocacy, which includes advocating to our parents, to our voters, to our community, so that they get involved as well. Because that's one of the challenges. We can get more people communicating in Sacramento or in Washington DC, we can make a difference. It shouldn't just be one person. There's a responsibility and role for
And like Cindy said, having a strategic plan of how we're going to do that.
Really like the idea of having a letter that we can then use to be able to judge the community, give them a template. And I have a feeling there's a lot of folks who would help us out with communicating in Sacramento.
And this conversation is actually happening at our local level with our government affairs committee. And they're having the same discussion on how to get the issues that concern the mountain, the legislative issues, and be able to telegraph that out and really get community support for some of the issues that affect the mountain most. So I mean, this conversation is happening elsewhere too. I mean, it's unfortunate because it takes forever to get onto the delegate assembly sometimes, and they normally don't take two from the same district. No offense.
Right.
So, but I think that we can use this forum so that all of us are actively engaged in making decisions.
When we take those bills to when I go out to community organizations like RIMED, when we do government affairs meetings, we have all of the senators and assemblymen's representatives in those meetings once a month. And they listen when I give my report and ask for advocacy on certain bills or topics. And so I know Cindy attends that, but those are open to the public. And so she sits on that board and then I'm a standing report out. So I think that's a great way because they've even written advocacy letters based on things that I've said in those meetings. So that's a great avenue that we get a lot of people on the mountain in one area that are good advocates for us.
Yeah, they voted, their board voted to oppose the late start bill. Discussion, they did a letter in opposition.
They're still virtual, some,
Yes.
yeah, they're still in virtual once a month on Tuesday morning.
Next month, dark.
Okay.
All right, are we ready to move on?
Do you want me to talk some?
No.
Because I have more stuff, but I'm limiting it.
12.0 action calendar, 12.1, we already approved unanimously. 12.2 personnel services, approval of the personnel page, fiscal impact to be determined. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Cindy, second.
Second.
Bill. Any discussion? Calling for the vote, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 12.3 personnel services, approval of the declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Form CL-500 for the term of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Fiscal impact and none. Motion.
So moved.
Cindy?
Second.
Bill? Any discussion? Seeing none, calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 12.4 personnel services, approval of the CTE/ROP salary schedule effective July 1st, 2021. Fiscal impact, 32,000. Personnel and various accounts.
So moved.
Cindy?
Second.
Bill? Any discussion? Seeing none, calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 12.5 personnel services, approval of the memorandum of understanding MOU between Government Teachers Association, RTA, and River of the World Unified School District on the professional learning community, PLC, fiscal impact to be determined.
So moved.
Cindy?
Seconded.
Dana? Any discussion?
I am in love with this whole idea of having all the schools on the same PLC schedule and increasing the PLC time for the high schools. I just am like, this is so great. One of the last recommendations was, you guys need more time, you need more time. And in two different areas, but that word time just gives that time in one area that we talked about.
I also want to express my appreciation for Heather and the negotiation team in getting this to happen. happy side effect that I didn't realize was gonna be a part of it is also two things. One is it helps families in terms of childcare and being able to coordinate their own personal lives, and two, saved transportation costs. So regardless of the transportation costs, it's nice that this all fell into place, and I know this was a difficult thing to arrange.
I really want to thank RTA. Those teachers went above and beyond to show the positives of this and to work in a really collaborative spirit to make this happen.
Wonderful news. No other discussion? Calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 12.6, business service purchase and sale agreement with the escrow instructions between Fifth Street Development and Rural Unified School District.
So moved.
Hold on, fiscal impact, 3.2 million, a sale. And Dan wants to go first there.
No second.
Bill is second. Any discussion? Thank you to everyone who worked on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay. Calling for the vote, all in favor?
She's singing the money song. Okay, sorry.
I will just say, running for the board, this is something that I wanted to happen, and it is very great to see it now, and I think we're doing a full job moving forward for our district with this. I'm excited.
So how many days ago was this?
2.
No, we can get back to that amount.
So technically, there's more to it than just the day escrow. There's technically a 15-day escrow. Okay, but we're still in the inspection period, which is 70 days. Okay, so that starts today. Okay, and then we open escrow on, because we're really running the escrow and the inspection period concurrently, because they've already exercised their 30 additional days than the 45, so 75-day inspection period. So escrow and inspection will run concurrently. So technically escrow the buyer could be done with this inspection before the 70 days, but escrow will close when that's completed. And the buyer's been very active in our building and in Jim's life. So really, we have to do our due diligence to find a blueprint of the building. They've probably spent over 20,000 of their own money so far during this inspection period on engineers and architects. And their crew coming up to do their due diligence in the building. So a very interested and committed buyer. So Nick was available if we had some closed session discussions that were needed, but he touched base with me today. And so that's been, really well received to have him in on our team. So we're excited about it. We do get to stay in the building up to 6 months, rent free, although we still have some commitments laid out in the purchase agreement on paying our utilities and insurance, et cetera. During that time, I don't anticipate us needing the 6 months because we're already working with Jim on the plan to have us moved. There's different departments that move date impacts differently. All of us are busy at different times. You ask me to move in August, but I have a heart attack, but maybe end of September, October is better for me, and it's not the personnel because they're hiring a ton of people. So we're going to put a plan together for phasing. We also have internet issues that hopefully will be worked out by then.
I was gonna ask that, when are those servers anticipated? That's what we're waiting on, right? Servers?
We're waiting on all the equipment. I've been told 6 to 8 to 24 months.
Oh, that's really a great range, 6 to 24.
But we have some band-aids
We do have
that
a
we can be
plan.
there. We can be there
Plan.
and
The hotspots.
mostly work.
And for those that maybe didn't read all of this or haven't been in other meetings, again, this is to with the property that we're selling, hopefully, is really well along the process is the district office. The district office will be moved to the Gregory Elementary School. Okay, shall we go? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 12.7 Business Service Resolution 21/22-18, readoption of the parent pay transportation program and establish ridership fees for the 2022/2023 school year. Fiscal impact to be determined, unrestricted general fund. Motion?
So moved.
Bill, second?
Seconded.
Anna, any discussion?
We have to second these, right, Jen?
Yes, and we do have some recommendations in your packet. It's our historical data of our ridership and our previous fee structure. As you know, this year we adopted zero parent pay for transportation and offset some costs with our ESSER $2. We are recommending and in your board packet that we do the same for this year. It addresses the barrier to learning and it provides us service the kids and we will eat their breakfast, their lunch, and mental health and nursing, care needed at the school, addressing learning loss and attendance. Kind of all wrapped up in a package.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to adopting a zero fee for parents?
No opposition. I'm wondering which folder where the report is. Is it the backup document, right? Yes, backup. So you have to actually go on the website.
It's page 52 in your board agenda.
So Jenny, I have a question. If we continue universal meals, if they rebench low incomes and all that to poverty instead of reproducing all of that, will that affect in the future the way that we collect or set bus pass fees? Does that make sense? Or would we?
No, because you have the authority and the right to adopt, unless that, I believe the bill you're referring to may disallow a board of that fees. So we would have to see what the language of that bill, if they're going to reimburse us for the cost, do you can you charge anymore? The way that it reads now, you can't charge.
Right.
But depending on
So
how.
I guess we're just gonna have to wait till the dust falls. It settles. Dust settles.
Dust or
Dust settles. Don't listen.
Bill and Dana, you appear to be reading. Thoughts?
I think in terms of it suits the school of peace for itself by being up in lessons for free, so.
Agree.
Jenny, we are working on making sure that those free bus passes come in and filling out the form.
Yes, and
That's the incentive for the free form.
Can we have them fill out FAFSA?
the form that Michelle's talking to, I believe it was in the background data of the agenda item, is an idea that we, because of universal meals and the worry that we would not have parents have an incentive to fill the income verification form, is to have that tied to the free bus pass. So if you want to read that bus pass regardless of what level, you must fill out this form. Perfect.
So that will
So,
help us with our percentage.
so then we will vote on a zero fee or a zero ridership fee with the caveat that they must fill out the form.
The only thing I would say is that we're unsure at this point, they're in direct search anyway, although they wouldn't need to fill out the form. We might have some classifications that we might not be able to force that, but we'll address that when we get to it. For just the general ridership, and especially the formally paid students, to have the mandated form submitted.
Because you're the first group.
So how, what's what do you change?
You just want to say that you're making a motion to approve with a 0 fee, with a 0%.
So we're amending the motion
Yes,
to approve it with a 0 fee.
yes.
Dan,
So
so moved.
And I second it.
Second. Calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 12.8, business service approval of the contract with Lizardo Smith, attorneys at law for legal services for the 2022-2023 school year, for back to be determined with the unrestricted general fund. Can we get a motion? Cindy.
second.
Bill.
Can we use them less than we used them this year?
We use wait, don't we use Atkins? The A guys.
This is for facilities.
This is,
This is our facilities attorneys.
yeah. This is the legal firm that we only use for facilities, unless we can use them for other services. We don't, so.
We use AALRR for personnel and superintendent.
That's
the one.
That's the one.
Unfortunately, that goes.
I've appreciated the information.
Was there a second? Did we have a second?
Yeah, we did. It was Cindy and Bill.
To make sure.
It's already. Sorry. Any further discussion? Calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 13.0 consent calendar items pulled for separate vote, discussion to be taken into consideration during agenda item 14.0. Would anybody like to pull an item from the agenda? All right. Seeing none. What was that?
Are you looking for the number?
No, I'm just moving on to pages. Where did it go? Is it not there?
I don't think it's there.
It's not there. Okay, I think I know what I'm supposed to say.
Yes.
So, a motion for 13.1, 13.2, 13.3, 13.4, 13.5, 13.6, 13.7, 13.8, 13.9, 13.10, 13.11, 13.12, 13.13, 13.14, 13.15, 13.16, 13.17, 13.18, 13.19, 13.20, 13.21, and 13.22. Motion.
So moved.
Cindy, seconded. Dana, any discussion?
If you're going to discuss a particular item, you need to pull it. Unless you just want to say thank you.
I wanted to, for the donations that were made to the music program. I know that there are a number of folks from the senior center and the Gregory Young Club and also just folks associated with Crestline Connect who are very generous with their donations and they're very enthusiastic about the music department. There will be a on Memorial Day on Monday, there will be a representative from the band who will be playing taps at the memorial service that will be at San Moritz on Monday. And I just think that's a really sweet relationship and I appreciate their financial generosity. Thank you.
And I'm amazed that you can get 2 vehicles for $51,000. And they have all the parts working.
Yes, they're much smaller than the current vehicles we have. The new Mavericks are a little bit smaller than like that from the year the current Ranger. But it's the pricing. Through separate, county, we're able to get that thing.
And then also I want to speak to 13.3, physics 1, where formerly all of our AP physics that we've offered has required calculus as a prerequisite. So AP Physics 1, I think that's fantastic. It's going to open up physics curriculum to students who haven't had the opportunity to take calculus yet. It's I think an IM3 concurrent enrollment prerequisite, and this is just fantastic that we're going to be able to offer this. So I'm excited.
All right, calling for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All those pass unanimously. 15.0, governance Future agenda items and planning. 15.1, time allotted for the Board of Trustees to request agenda items for future meetings. Again, share to be on an agenda in the future.
I also have down NSBA share out on June 23rd and the Equity Social Justice report from Dr. Judy White on June 23rd as well.
I don't have a date for this, but I know from going to time with trustees over at BOE, there was both parent and staff questioning about summer school and wishing for us to start planning in the fall for the next year's summer school. So I would like to see early on in the next school year, maybe maybe September, October, if we could start discussing planning for summer school for 2023.
I think October is a good goal. September and August are difficult, but we can put that to the government's calendar.
And I'm getting redundant, but I'm going to definitely be looking forward to that safety.
Okay.
On it.
I'll work with Don to get a date.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
16.0, future meeting dates, regular board meeting, June 9th, 2022 at 4 p.m. in Rural High School Library, 27400 Highway 18, Nevada, California. Regular board meeting, June 23rd, 2022 at 4 p.m. in Rural High School Library, same address. 7.0, recess to closed session. If necessary, we are going to be recessing to closed session again at 8:38 p.m.